Gaslighting. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where the manipulator seeks to sow seeds of doubt in the victim, making them question their own memory, perception, or sanity. This can involve denying past events, trivializing the victim's feelings, or presenting false information with the intent to confuse and control the victim. Love bombing. Love bombing is an intense and sudden display of affection, praise, or attention, often at the beginning of a relationship. The manipulator overwhelms the victim with affection and admiration, making them feel special and desired. This can create a strong emotional bond and dependency on the manipulator. Triangulation. Triangulation involves bringing a third party into a relationship or situation in order to manipulate or control the dynamics. This can include comparing the victim to others, spreading rumors or gossip, or seeking validation from someone else to undermine the victim's confidence or loyalty. Hoovering. Hoovering is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator attempts to suck the victim back into a relationship or situation after they have tried to leave or set boundaries. This can involve promises of change, apologies, or even threats in order to regain control over the victim. Projection. Projection is when the manipulator attributes their own negative thoughts, feelings, or behaviors onto the victim. This can serve to deflect blame, avoid accountability, or undermine the victim's sense of reality by making them feel responsible for the manipulator's actions. Manipulative flattery. Manipulative flattery involves giving insincere compliments, praise, or admiration in order to gain favor or control over the victim. The manipulator uses flattery as a tool to manipulate the victim's emotions or behavior, often with the intention of getting something in return. Emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is a form of manipulation where the manipulator uses threats, guilt, or manipulation to control the victim's behavior or emotions. This can involve withholding affection, making ultimatums, or playing on the victim's fears and insecurities to get what they want. Silent treatment. The silent treatment is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator ignores or withholds communication from the victim as a way of punishing or controlling them. This can leave the victim feeling confused, anxious, or desperate for attention, ultimately giving the manipulator power over their emotions. Grandiosity. Grandiosity involves exaggerating one's own achievements, talents, or importance in order to gain admiration, respect, or control over others. The manipulator may boast about their accomplishments, belittle others, or demand special treatment in order to feed their ego and maintain a sense of superiority. Victim playing. Victim playing is when the manipulator portrays themselves as the victim in order to gain sympathy, deflect blame, or manipulate others into feeling guilty or responsible. This can involve exaggerating hardships, fabricating stories of victimization, or seeking pity to manipulate others into doing what they want. Isolation. This involves gradually cutting off the victim from friends, family, or support networks in order to increase dependency on the manipulator. By limiting outside influences, the manipulator gains more control over the victim's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. False promises. False promises are a manipulation tactic where the manipulator makes commitments or pledges they have no intention of fulfilling. This can be used to lure the victim into compliance or keep them hooked in a relationship or situation. Selective truth-telling. Selective truth-telling involves disclosing information selectively or partially, in a way that serves the manipulator's agenda, while withholding crucial details or context. This can distort the victim's understanding of reality and make them more susceptible to manipulation. Love withdrawal. Love withdrawal is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator withholds affection, attention, or validation as a form of punishment or control. By creating feelings of insecurity or inadequacy, the manipulator can manipulate the victim into compliance or submission. Intellectual superiority. Intellectual superiority involves using knowledge, intellect, or expertise to assert dominance or control over others. The manipulator may use complex language, logical arguments, or condescension to undermine the victim's confidence or assert their authority. Emotional manipulation. Emotional manipulation involves exploiting the victim's emotions, insecurities, or vulnerabilities to gain control or influence over them. This can include playing on guilt, fear, or sympathy to manipulate the victim's behavior or decisions. Blame shifting. Blame shifting is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator deflects responsibility for their actions or mistakes onto the victim. By shifting blame onto others, the manipulator avoids accountability and maintains their self-image as faultless or superior. Undermining self-esteem. Undermining self-esteem involves subtly or overtly attacking the victim's confidence, worth, or sense of identity. This can include criticism, ridicule, or comparisons designed to erode the victim's self-esteem and increase their dependence on the manipulator for validation or approval. Feigned vulnerability. Feigned vulnerability is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator pretends to be vulnerable or helpless in order to elicit sympathy, support, or attention from others. This can be used to manipulate others into feeling responsible for the manipulator's well-being or to gain advantage in a situation. Exploiting empathy. Exploiting empathy involves manipulating the victim's compassionate or empathetic nature to serve the manipulator's needs or desires. This can include playing the victim, exaggerating suffering, or fabricating stories of hardship to elicit sympathy or assistance from others. Intermittent reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement involves inconsistently rewarding or punishing the victim's behavior, which can create confusion and dependence. The manipulator alternates between periods of affection, praise, or validation and periods of withdrawal, criticism, or punishment, keeping the victim uncertain and seeking approval. Playing the hero or rescuer. Playing the hero or rescuer involves portraying oneself as the savior or problem solver in order to gain control or admiration from others. The manipulator may create or exacerbate problems in order to position themselves as the solution, manipulating others' emotions and perceptions for their own benefit. Scapegoating. Scapegoating is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator blames the victim for problems, failures, or conflicts in order to deflect responsibility or avoid accountability. By scapegoating, the manipulator undermines the victim's credibility and shifts focus away from their own actions or shortcomings. Entitlement. Entitlement involves believing oneself to be inherently deserving of special treatment, privileges, or attention without regard for others' needs or feelings. The manipulator may demand preferential treatment, exploit others' resources, or act with a sense of entitlement to assert dominance and control over others. Stonewalling. Stonewalling is a manipulation tactic where the manipulator refuses to engage in communication or discussion, often as a way of avoiding accountability or conflict. By withdrawing from communication, the manipulator can control the flow of information and prevent resolution of issues or conflicts. Emotional invalidation. Emotional invalidation involves dismissing, minimizing, or ignoring the victim's thoughts, feelings, or experiences, which can lead to feelings of self-doubt, confusion, or isolation. The manipulator may invalidate the victim's emotions in order to maintain control or avoid addressing underlying issues or conflicts. Identity manipulation. Identity manipulation involves distorting or undermining the victim's sense of self, values, or beliefs in order to exert control or influence over them. The manipulator may criticize, ridicule, or manipulate the victim's identity in order to weaken their sense of autonomy or independence. Coercive control. Coercive control involves using threats, intimidation, or manipulation to control the victim's behavior, choices, or actions. The manipulator may exert control through surveillance, monitoring, or restriction of the victim's activities, isolating them from support networks, and undermining their sense of agency. Emotional exploitation. Emotional exploitation involves manipulating the victim's emotions, vulnerabilities, or insecurities for personal gain or advantage. The manipulator may use emotional manipulation to extract favors, resources, or compliance from the victim, exploiting their empathy or compassion for their own benefit. Smear campaign. A smear campaign is a deliberate and systematic effort to tarnish someone's reputation, credibility, or social standing through spreading false or misleading information, rumors, or gossip. The manipulator seeks to damage the victim's reputation by portraying them in a negative light, often by exaggerating flaws, misrepresenting events, or fabricating stories. This can be done overtly or covertly, and the manipulator may enlist others as allies or supporters to amplify the smear campaign's impact. The goal of a smear campaign is to isolate the victim, undermine their relationships and support networks, and discredit their credibility or character, thereby exerting control or gaining advantage over them.